Hi, I'm Jonathan Tessier, and we're back here for another episode of Wellness Wisdom with Rebecca. How you doing, Rebecca?
How are you?
I'm great. And today, we're going to be talking about something the internet's been talking about a lot. It's cortisol. You might have heard the phrase, don't spike my cortisol. And we're just going to deep dive into what it is and how it affects your body. So let's get into it. What is cortisol?
Yes, great question. So I think a lot of the time cortisol is referred to as our stress hormone, and which is true. It is a major factor in the way that we can respond to stress, but it is a little bit more than that. I think maybe a little more context is that cortisol, what it does is it produces glucose, helps us kind of produce more glucose, which in turn is producing more energy for us. So the idea being that we have energy to go about our day or to deal with a certain stressor. So yeah, definitely is our stress hormone, but it's involved in a lot of other things, including like our sex hormones, our cholesterol, lots of other things. So what we really are looking for with our cortisol is to have a nice 24-hour kind of rhythm. Mm-hmm. Do you know when cortisol should be maybe high versus low?
No, I don't.
No. Yeah, well, let me tell you.
Okay.
So really what we're looking for is for cortisol to be higher in the morning, so to get us out of bed, wake us up, get us ready for our day, and then to be lower at night to let melatonin do its job and get us into a nice deep sleep. So we're looking for a nice balanced kind of 24-hour rhythm of cortisol. It's not totally gone at night, but it's at its lowest kind of as we're going to bed, and it starts to slowly rise during kind of our REM sleep, actually, to give us some energy for that REM sleep where our mind is really busy, and then rises a lot more to wake us up, get us out of bed, get us ready for our day. Right. So that's kind of what a normal cortisol rhythm should look like in a nice, healthy person. And then, you know, there's other times where cortisol is going to spike as well in response to like a stressful situation. So I'm sure you know about adrenaline, maybe. Like, so when do you think of like adrenaline?
An intense situation, just heart pumping, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like getting chased by a tiger.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
So, which is true. So that's when adrenaline's going to really spike. And then it kind of falls, which is great. Like it's a quicker hormone. Whereas in response to that, like tiger, I don't know, that's always my example. Cortisol is also going to start to rise too, but it rises more slowly and it dissipates kind of more slowly. Okay. So that's when you might feel like, wow, like that happened like a half an hour ago, but I'm still having trouble kind of shaking it off. Right. Tiger's long gone. That's kind of cortisol has joined the party for you.
So you don't want your cortisol to be too high and you don't want it to be low. You just want it to be in the middle kind of thing.
You got it. Yeah, exactly. We don't want it gone. That's for sure. We never want to get out of bed, and you don't want it chronically high, right? And that's when like you see that kind of chronic stress picture where it's really hard. Like maybe it's, you know, in response to a stressful job. Some of us have to like, you know, our nurses at the hospital and all those like other great jobs that we really need. Those chronically stressful kind of situations can keep your cortisol a little bit higher. And that's when you can run into some problems.
Right. So how can we lower our cortisol in those situations?
Yeah. So, I mean, in those situations, I think what we're going to be kind of looking for in order to lower our cortisol is to, if we know our cortisol is chronically high, we're going to be kind of working towards some strategies and routines to implement to kind of keep it lower and work towards that more balanced kind of 24-hour rhythm. But in a situation like that, you know, you're driving and somebody like does something frustrating to you on the road, instead of maybe like flipping them off, what can you do? Maybe take some deep breaths. That's a really good one. Remind yourself that kind of you are safe. It's okay. We're going to move on. We're going to move down the road. So definitely some strategies that way. But in terms of kind of like more longer term strategies in order to keep our cortisol lower when it's become chronically high, and some signals that your cortisol has become chronically high is maybe you really have trouble waking up in the morning. You have trouble going to sleep at night. So that balance has kind of been flipped a little bit, or just off kilter. Your cortisol is not rising at the right times or falling at the right times. You're kind of really anxious, really irritable. Those can be some symptoms of high cortisol. You can imagine if your blood sugar is not well balanced, that can really kind of throw off that picture as well. So supporting really healthy blood sugar is important for managing your cortisol, but also if your cortisol is kind of out of balance, you might notice kind of low blood sugar, kind of like feelings, just imbalanced blood sugar, maybe big dips, that kind of thing.
So diet has a big impact on cortisol levels.
Yes, absolutely. So something to consider, like that picture. Sometimes we're, in our society, we just ask a lot of ourselves and of our bodies, right? And that's when you're going to see that cortisol kind of picture becoming a problem. And sometimes what happens is you get chronically high cortisol, but you can only maintain that for so long, and then it's going to kind of drop, and then you've got that kind of real burnout type picture.
Absolutely. So I know that herbs like ashwagandha can help with cortisol, that kind of stuff. Is there anything else that can help?
Something to start off is, if you think kind of you've got that cortisol imbalance, again, you're maybe having trouble waking up in the morning, having trouble sleeping at night, really anxious, really irritable, you're going to want to look at those foundational things that we tend to talk about. So getting really great quality sleep. So supporting your circadian rhythm by going to sleep at the same time each night, waking up at the same time each morning. And then in the morning, making sure you're eating within 30 to 90 minutes of waking. Fasting can be a really great tool, but not a great tool in someone that is kind of having trouble with their cortisol and their stress response. So waking up, having your breakfast, getting that morning sunlight that everybody's talking about, that kind of signals our cortisol as well. Getting that great sleep. Something like magnesium can be really helpful. It can be quite depleted in a high stress state. And then, absolutely, your adaptogenic herbs are a nice way to go as well. So ashwagandha being one of them, holy basil, rhodiola, saffron could be another one. So lots of different adaptogenic herbs. And what they're doing, it's not helping you increase your stress response, but helping you adapt to your kind of stressors, right?
And I mean, as long as you don't get chased by a tiger, you should be keeping it low.
Yeah, let's hope so. And yeah, exactly. And I think, another thing I always like to mention is listening to your body, right? Maybe things like meditation, going for quiet walks, just sitting down with a tea, no TV, no phone, maybe not even a book, just building in that time for your nervous system just to calm down. And, considering maybe this isn't a time for high intensity workouts. Maybe it's a time to lean into more yoga, more stretching, more walking, maybe not running, and HIIT training, that kind of thing.
Right. So it sounds like there's a lot of things you can do to help maintain those cortisol levels.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of different tools. And then, of course, depending kind of where you're at in that picture, maybe you need to work with a practitioner to kind of look at just how deep that's running and get some personalized tools as well.
Okay, so how does caffeine affect our cortisol levels?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think you'll see a lot on the internet, we shouldn't be, having caffeine in an empty stomach. And for the average person, that might be okay. Again, listening to your body, if caffeine on an empty stomach gives you anxiety and makes you feel a little too stimulated, it's probably not for you. But if you're dealing with a burnout situation, chronically high cortisol, or now kind of chronically low cortisol, caffeine on an empty stomach may not be for you, and caffeine may not be for you. Maybe you're switching to a decaf or to a different drink. But again, just listening to your body in response to how you kind of feel about that caffeine.
Okay, and how does things like sleep affect cortisol?
Yeah, great question. So what you want to do if you again know you have that kind of chronically high cortisol picture or that burnout, is sleep timing is really important. So going to sleep at the same time each night, and then reducing late night stimulation. So maybe you're not kind of watching TV an hour before bedtime. So reducing that light exposure, right, from the TV as well, and just that stimulation. So maybe you're switching for an hour before bed to reading a book or doing a meditation or a yoga nidra, something like that before bed, just to get yourself more into that rest and digest state.
Okay, and what about blood sugar? How does that help?
Yeah, so for your blood sugar, eating things like protein, fat, and carbs with your meals, for this person that's dealing with this isn't someone who maybe needs to be on a low carb diet. You want to be feeding yourself. So, eating protein, fat, and fiber with all of your meals to keep your blood sugar well balanced, but not being afraid of carbs. So what that might look like, we don't want to necessarily reach for carbs in the form of say a donut or something like that. But, if you are having something like that, pairing it with, your protein and your fat and your fiber. So maybe having an apple and some nuts and seeds with that is a good way to kind of balance out something that is maybe higher in carbs and your sugar, just to support your blood sugar well.
All right, so that's going to do it for us. Anything else you want us to cover, please like, comment, and subscribe. Anything you want us to talk about?
Any questions, just throw them in the comments. We always love ideas of what we can cover. So, we'll see you on the next one. I think we're going to talk about some workout supplements for women.
Absolutely.